Officer Joe was waiting out the storm alongside the road as it was pouring fiercely in Missouri. Still, when he witnessed a young black man sprinting toward an elderly woman, everything went haywire. You won't believe what the policeman did next. Welcome to USA Stories channel. Do not forget to subscribe and activate the bell button to receive all new updates. Now let's go to the story. Dark clouds had accumulated over the sky, lending the environment a sense of impending dread. Periodically, a brilliant burst of light would occasionally zip across the sky, briefly illuminating the whole planet before exploding. Then, thunder that may have shaken the earth quickly followed. That was the exact amount of rain that fell. Strong winds buffeted structures from every direction as it arrived. Since everyone with half a brain was wise enough to have sought cover, the road was deserted. After all, being outside in this type of intense rain is one of the worst things that can happen to a person. Joe Holt, the officer, was no exception. He was comfortably nestled in his police vehicle. Even though he could hear the rain beating down on the car's roof, he was unconcerned. He kept an ear out for any emergencies brought on by the deluge while he listened to the radio. Before going back out into the streets to continue his patrol, he was waiting for the rain to finish. A second lightning strike pierced the gloomy sky. He pondered what was going through his daughter's head at that very time. She was terrified of thunder and lightning, and he could only imagine how terrified she would be at a downpour of that intensity that was accompanied by powerful gusts. He wasn't really concerned, though, because he knew his wife was with her at home, so the young child wouldn't be overly afraid. But then he started to think about phoning her when he thought about them. He was aware that his young girl's confidence would be greatly boosted by hearing his voice at this particular moment. But as he reached for his phone, he spotted something strange occurring outside the car, and his hand stopped in midair. In front of him, parked in the glaring rain, was a vehicle. He saw the door slide open, letting a teenage lad of African-American descent leap out and take off running. Joe followed the youngster's gaze with his eyes, and much to his surprise, observed that the boy was moving toward an elderly woman who was shakily making her way to her car. As Joe saw the kid approach the woman, a lot of things went through his head. Sensing peril, he had his fingers hovering over his doorknob, ready to jump out at a second's notice. This particular police officer, Joe, was always a vigilant police officer. He was a cop who had always been steady and trustworthy. His passion for the work was evident in the way he performed his tasks. He performed the work as though he sincerely desired what was best for the community, not just for the payday at the end of the month. His goal was to become a police officer who anyone could approach and feel at ease with. That's why he was afraid the adolescent lad was going to harm the elderly woman when he spotted him racing towards her. He pulled the handle and tried to open it, but the strong gusts forced the door back and it slammed shut. The strong sound of rain took away what would have been a deafening boom. Just as Joe was ready to yank the door open again, he saw something else strange about the youngster. The small kid hurried to the old woman, pulled off his jacket, and covered her with it as it was pouring rain, keeping her warm. Joe was shocked to see the youngster leading the elderly grandmother toward the automobile. This was a totally unexpected gesture of selflessness. Joe initially believed the youngster was going to assault the woman when he saw him leap out of the car and dash in her direction. He was glad he was mistaken. Joe was in awe of the boy's altruistic gesture as he used his weight to support the mother and shield her from the inclement weather. He lifted his phone gently and snapped shots of them. When at last they came to the woman's automobile, Joe kept watching. The lad led her inside the door and shut it tightly after assisting her in opening it. The child hurried back across the park to the van, slid the door open, and stepped inside, now completely soaked from the rain. That's when Joe saw there were two individuals in the front seat, and both of them were deep in discussion, and he was positive the adolescent hadn't said anything to either of them before helping the woman. He noticed a lady in the car, and he had a strong feeling that she was the boy's mother. This delighted Joe even more since it implied that the grown-ups in the car had not instructed the youngster to assist the elderly mother. Since he had chosen to do it, it was evidence that he was a decent guy at heart. Joe found he was having trouble staying still while he sat by himself in the automobile. He couldn't wait to tell the boy's mother the wonderful news he had to share. They had to know what he had done, and he knew that the good lad would never bring it up if he let them go. Still, that meant Joe was stuck inside when it started to rain. He was stuck in his police car until the rain stopped, just like the youngster and his mother. After falling steadily for more than an hour, the intensity gradually decreased until it ultimately became a light drizzle before ceasing altogether. The air had a clean, fresh scent once it was finished. He inhaled deeply as the fresh scent filled his nose as he wound down his window. Just as he opened the door to approach the van, he noticed that the back lights illuminated, indicating that the vehicle's engine had started. As soon as the van pulled out of the park, he got back into his car. Then he started chasing after her. He was going to tell the boy's mother what he'd done, no matter what. He followed her slowly as she drove through the mostly deserted streets. The rain had stopped, and automobiles and people were once again lining the streets. The trapped people started to emerge from concealment. Joe didn't ask the van to stop until they reached a more open section of road with less people around. He opened his door and ventured out into the cool night air. Then he walked up to the van and gave the driver's window a gentle tap. After a few moments, the window slid down slightly, revealing the woman's face. She was staring at Joe's outfit, looking both afraid and perplexed. She could tell by the expression on her face that she was in danger, but she couldn't conceive what she had done to deserve it. Joe told her right away that none of them were in danger, and she wasn't. He said there was another reason he was there. Pointing to the adolescent lad seated in the rear, he said, "The woman wanted to know what he had done to the police officer, her eyes widening with panic at that moment." The child then assisted an elderly woman getting into a car, Joe informed her. The mother's jaw dropped wide in disbelief at what she heard. She was in shock that he had gotten out of the van for that purpose. She believed he had gone outside only to relieve himself. Joe reassured her that her kid was brave and that he was affected by what he accomplished, which is why he wanted for her to be aware. He also showed her the photos he had shot of the child assisting the elderly grandmother by pulling out his phone. She started crying as soon as she saw the photo, especially when Joe had pulled up on her. She had been absolutely scared that her kid was in trouble. He stated he was sorry and that he had no other choice than to use the megaphone or the sirens to gain her attention. Tyrese was the boy's name, he learned as they continued their conversation. Joe was informed by the woman that Tyrese's actions were typical for their family. These were the morals she had been reared with, and she had made sure her kid had them too. That was the extent to which she valued compassion. She understood the significance of Joe taking time out of his hectic day to come tell her this, so she was grateful for the gesture. She told him how much it meant to her and expressed her gratitude. Joe informed her that he should be the one to thank her for raising such a wonderful son and that she didn't need to thank him. He then complimented her on a job well done raising him and expressed his hope and prayer that Tyrese would do great things in life. Tyrese was taken aback that the police officer had noticed him when he thanked him for being such a good man. He informed Joe that he regularly did things like that and didn't think it was a big issue what he had done. Joe was even more amazed by that. Tyrese has a golden heart even at such a young age. Joe felt confident he would have accomplished a great deal of good by the time he reached adulthood. Joe stayed with them for a few more seconds before letting them get out of the van and resume their journey. Joe went back to his squad car and went back to policing the area. Even though he worked as hard as he could, he was unable to take Tyrese's noble deed from his thoughts. All he could see in his mind was the image of the teenager who jumped into the rain to save the elderly woman. The world wouldn't be such a bad place to live if there were more individuals like him. This inspired Joe to post about the experience on Facebook, which helped Tyrese gain notoriety. In the caption, Joe opened out completely, sharing how moved he was that a little child could show such kindness in a hateful and envious society. It really irritates me how much hate there is motivated by race, sexual orientation, color, or belief. The young man's sole concern was being kind, Joe said, adding that he was very much looking forward to seeing the young man again, even though he knew it wouldn't be simple. Despite their brief encounter, he stated Tyrese had grown to be very important to him and he was eager to see the adolescent lad again. Therefore, he requested that Tyrese and his mother get in touch with him if they saw his ad. "Kiddo, Joe said. "This guy owes you a dinner if you see me on the street again. I'll be the one rushing to you if you ever need anything." He uploaded the photos after he was finished. As fate would have it, the post quickly gained massive popularity. The post was widely shared, and Tyrese received a great deal of acclaim for his actions in the form of likes and comments. They admired how compassionate he was by nature, and how, even at such a young age, he already possessed these attributes. Finally, a week or so later, Tyrese's family members spotted the message. They instantly recognized the person from the images and let them know. The fact that Joe had spoken about their experience and shared it with the world astounded both mother and son. Sincerely, they had believed that they had seen each other for the final time. Tyrese was relieved about this and delighted to have reconnected with Joe. After contacting Joe at his place of employment, the police station put them in touch with him. Joe managed to arrange a dinner date for them all. It was a lovely occasion. Joe was pleased to be the one making them grin, as the mother and boy appeared to be enjoying themselves. He encouraged Tyrese to never lose his good heart and reassured him that he had done the right thing. He ought to act only out of moral obligation and never out of expectation of profit. The small child thanked you for your nice remarks and pledged to always try his hardest. At the restaurant, they clicked photos of each other, which were then uploaded to the internet. Similar to the last post, this one too went viral. This time, the police officer, the woman, and her kid gained even more notoriety when local news outlets and bloggers showed an interest in the story and covered it. Tyrese, the young one, was amazed with everything. He appeared to be dreaming. It was still hard for him to comprehend that he had been the victim of all this just for having decided to assist an elderly woman. Almost overnight, he went viral on the internet, and everyone praised and thanked him for being such a kind youngster whenever they saw him. But there was even another surprise in store for them. He and his family were having supper one day when there was a tap on the door. Someone had delivered a box right at their door. It was unexpected by all of them and left them all shocked. They were all horrified to their core as they went to investigate. It was an e-bike, one of the priciest models available. It had a message on it saying that Tyrese was receiving it as a present for being such a wonderful youngster. The adolescent lad was ecstatic beyond measure. His good fortune was beyond belief. He had expressed on social media how much he would want to have that specific brand of e-bike just a few months prior. It was simply too costly for his parents to afford. They looked for a sender and couldn't find one. It was as though the person who gave him the bike intended to stay unidentified. He said that this was the cherry on top and that he would never change. He would make sure that at least one person smiled every day and would keep being the unselfish guy that he was. Please remember to subscribe to our channel, give us a thumbs up, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of our videos. If you enjoyed the tale, the next video that plays on your screen will probably move you too.